the main thing to understand about electric vehicles is that they typically have two batteries. There is the battery that powers the vehicle and determines, how many miles it can go on charge. And then there's typically a low voltage battery that powers things like the windows, the doors, the touch screen. And, Tesla has had this for quite a while, but if you lose the 12-volt battery, if the 12-volt battery dies, if you're in a crash and then 12-volt battery loses power, then the doors lock. And in order to get out, you have to really know where that manual or emergency override release mechanism is. To be clear, electric vehicle fires are still very rare. But it can be a real issue if there is a crash. And over the past year or so, we've just seen a number of crashes where people have survived the impact of the crash and then died in the fire, or were injured in the fire. So this all really began with a really terrible crash in Piedmont, California, in which 3 college students died. Some of you may remember hearing about the basketball star Arenas in Los Angeles, who gave a press conference about having to kick out the window of his Cybertruck in order to get out after a crash. There have been cases in Wisconsin and in Toronto. And then as I just sort of dug more and more into this with my colleagues Emily Chang and Carol Carlson, we just realized that there have been a number of crashes where the doors were a real challenge, not just for occupants, but for first responders that were trying to get people out.
I mean, some of the stories you tell in this are just heartbreaking, too. Dana, can you tell us, is this all Tesla models? I mean, what are the specifics of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically every Tesla model on the market has a similar electronic door. Where the manual release is inside is different depending on whether it's, an S, an X, a 3, a Y, or a Cybertruck. And to be clear, you can get out. There is a mechanical release. But the issue is that a lot of people don't know where they are, particularly passengers. I think Tesla would probably argue that owners should be familiar with how their vehicle works. All of this is laid out in the owner's manual. But if you're a passenger in a car, if you're hailing an Uber, you might not be aware of where these mechanisms are.
And if you're renting it too, yeah.
If you're renting it, and this is also not just an issue after crashes. We looked at NHTSA's website, and there are scores of complaints from consumers about, their pet being locked in their car, their toddler, how they buckled a child into a car seat and then went around to the front door, and the 12-volt battery died, and they could not easily get their child out. So this is something that people have complained about for quite some time.
What's the size and scope of how many vehicles or impacted or users that are in this?
Well, I mean, Tesla is the premier seller of electric vehicles in the United States, bar none. So everyone could potentially be impacted. But again, vehicle fires themselves are exceedingly rare. And I think we've heard about these cases more with Tesla because Tesla obviously has the most cars on the road. But a lot of other automakers have very similar doors that are electronically powered.
Then, has Elon Musk even ever commented on these door handles?
Not recently. I mean, when he, back in 2013, when Tesla was first coming out with the Model S, he talked a little bit about how Tesla had a very fancy door handle on an earnings call, but there has not been any public comments about the door design recently.
So what's next? How exactly is there any sort of precedence for something like this? How does this play out?
I mean, I think it's going to play out on two fronts. One is the regulatory piece. So, in the United States, we have NHTSA. Europe has its own regulatory system. China has its own regulatory system. If these accidents and crashes where egress is an issue keep happening, you could potentially see some work on the regulatory front. I want to make it clear that at the moment, in the United States, crash testing is all about how does the vehicle perform in a crash. There's nothing about how does an occupant get out or what happens to the human after the crash. That whole side of it is not something that crash testing in the United States has historically focused on. But the other place where this is going to happen is in the courts with lawsuits. And we've seen a lot of litigation around Tesla and Autopilot. We have yet to see that many cases that really focus just on the doors, but there was a case filed in June, which is the case in Virginia that we wrote about in the piece.
Now, you touched upon this a little bit, Dana. A lot of people have Teslas, right? Even if you rent them. So how can they protect themselves? So there is a way to get out and to release that door, correct? So how do you do that?
You just have to really make sure that you are familiarizing yourself with the vehicle and know where that mechanical release is. In the front doors, it's very much by like where you would touch like the lever for the windows. In the back door, it can vary depending on the model. Sometimes it's like a little bit hidden in the speaker and you have to like lift something up and find the pull cord. But look at the owner's manual. If you're renting one from, online, like be sure to read it before you get in one, and just, even if you jump into like an Uber or a Lyft, make sure you know where that is.